So, this is my story. Everybody has their own. This is mine, and this is the way that I'm choosing to share it. I'm going on a hike. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving 2015, and it's cold, but I prefer the cold. It's almost 30 degrees. Anyway, this is about my story, and again, everybody has their own, which is kind of cool. But mine started last year. I was a runner, ran a lot. I loved it. I was one of those weird people that just loved running. When I got in 50 miles in a week, I was excited. I thought that was a pretty huge accomplishment. I was training pretty aggressively for a marathon. I had a very specific time goal. I wanted to have a new PR, as most runners understand. And so I stepped it up. My training, my mental, my cross training, whatever you want to call it. Started to notice weird pains. My left arm and my left leg would just go numb while I was running. The only way I could describe it is just how I would imagine it would feel like running with a prosthetic leg. Obviously, I've never done that. That's just what it felt like. Real hard to describe. Anyway, that was what the initial clue was, to go to the doctor. And there were other things: fatigue, anxiety, depression, inability to focus, weird dyslexia type issues. But doctor says get an MRI. Doctor says you need to see a neurologist. Neurologist wants another MRI. And after that they say, okay, we're pretty sure you have multiple sclerosis. The only way to be 100% sure is to do spinal tap, which they now call a lumbar puncture. Basically, they stick a needle into your back. They pull out fluid from your spinal, whatever it's called. Punch the membrane with a needle, pull out some of that fluid. It's kind of gross to think about. And then they test it for O-bands, I think is what they're called. Occipital, some bands. If they're there, you have MS. If they're not, they start to test for other things like Lyme disease and miscellaneous. So, they were present, so it was official. I have MS. And honestly, my first doctor said, oh gosh, our goal is to keep you active, keep you running. It's a good goal, but unrealistic, I guess. I think that she was trying to be nice, but unfortunately that just added to my frustration because I really wanted to keep running 20 miles on a Saturday morning. But somehow that stopped after having that lumbar puncture. The lumbar puncture was good for diagnosis, but if you've ever had one, you know it's painful. Obviously you're not running. And that membrane that they punched a hole in didn't seal up like it was supposed to. So I had what's called a blood patch. Blood patch is basically like an epidural, similar to like having a baby, right? Get the needle in your back and then you get medicine if you're having labor, except with a blood patch, instead of giving you medicine, they're taking your own blood and trying to make a patch over where that membrane was punched. I had to get 2 of those because the first one didn't work. So I was out of commission for a while. Couldn't run. Missed a lot of work. Laid on my back. And anyway, so pretty much from that point on, my activity level was significantly reduced, which was really frustrating. I like to say I had an active life. Obviously running that much. Wasn't just running, I was doing other stuff. Even just things around the house, you know, cutting grass and working in the garden and that kind of stuff. So anyway, started to rely on my wife a lot more. She's been helpful, great. With all those little chores and things that I kind of take for granted that I was able to do. Anyway, so I'm filming this now. It's more than a year later. What's going on? Well, not a whole lot, really. Go to work. I always leave early because I can't sit in my chair anymore. My back has just never been the same. Ever since, I like to say, ever since 3 needles were in my back in 1 week, I've never been the same. And frankly, I think those needles have caused more trouble than the MS itself. Getting a doctor to believe that is tough, but that's my opinion and I'm keeping it. So anyway, again, this is my story, and it is what it is. But since hiking isn't going to happen, since running isn't going to happen, at least right now, hiking is what I'm going to. I refuse to just sit. That's what I've been doing for a year. That's why nothing to report. And I've gained weight. I don't like it. And I love being outside. I was in Boy Scouts, but not just like your common everyday Boy Scout troop where they go on a camp out every now and again. I did a camp out every month. We did this awesome what we called high adventure trips. Every year, every summer. We took these just awesome trips. I went backpacking Grand Tetons, which was just absolutely just stunning. I went backpacking Grand Canyon and Zion National Park, Dixie National Forest, all that area. And this is Boy Scouts. And I'm in Kentucky. I live in Kentucky, so we made that travel. I went canoeing up in Minnesota for a week. We went whitewater rafting in West Virginia and horseback riding. We made some awesome trips. Anyway, I'll just say I love being outside. So here we are, outside. Using trekking poles for the first time. Mostly to help with balance. It's kind of weird. I think you have to definitely get used to them. I'm not yet. You gotta get a pattern, and I just can't figure it out yet. I've always been good on my feet with, like, running, but I also love trail running. You've got to be pretty good with your sort of hand-eye. It's like foot-eye coordination. I've always been pretty good with that, but only because I've spent so many hours on trails. It's like a art. You have to practice and practice. You get better, but I spent so many hours that I kind of built that skill. Anyone can do it, but anyway. So, diagnosis. It's tough. I think it's actually harder on my wife. She sees me kind of mopey around. She's been a good support, but it's not easy. I don't know who it's harder on, me or her. But anyway, I'm taking it. I have some short-term goals. Short-term goals are to hike. That's what I'm doing now. So we're working on those goals. They're not just some lofty random thing. And long-term goals, I'm going to do the Appalachian Trail. I don't know when. 2016 is probably a little too soon. 2017, maybe. I got to get in a little bit more shape, and I actually would need some updated gear. All my stuff is more than 10 years old. So it's heavy, is all that means. And yeah, so I'm gonna take a break. My hand's starting to get tired from holding this camera. So we'll talk more. So I appreciate you watching. I have more story to tell about multiple sclerosis. Everybody has their own. This is just mine. So thanks for checking in. Hit the like button and subscribe. This is going to be a journey. So maybe in a couple years after you're subscribed, maybe even less than that, you'll see some videos of the Appalachian Trail. So here's hoping, and thanks for checking in.